You need to cue me. Okay. Hey guys, how's everybody doing? We're gonna get started in a moment. I'm super excited to share with you some opal pastels, so stay tuned. We're gonna get started in a minute. We've got the flip charts ready, we have formulas, so we're super excited to be here. And as soon as they give me the cue, we'll get started. Hey everybody. Hey Robert, how are you? It's good to hear from you, or I wish I could see you, but of course, social distancing.
IG Live.
Hey Kat, how are you? Hey Ashley. Hey Ray, what's up?
Hi, IG.
Hey Donna, how are you, my love? Mwah. And of course, we have IG Live going on too, so that's going to be on the other. Hey Jane, how are you? Hey Eves, haven't seen you in a while. Is that Nicole? Hey Nicole. Hey Balvia, is Balvia sure? Cool. Mr. James Houghton. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. I wanna begin. So today's little online class is gonna be about Chameleon and color Chameleon, and how you can really convert it into a commercial pastel. So my influence for this was really definitely spring, and of course Easter. So you're going to see that kind of a palette of color today. I'm going to be sharing with you those types of formulations that we have with Chameleon, and showing you the different ranges and how you can use them. So if you have any color questions today about placement or about formulation, please feel free, and even if it's about anything that you might think of. And I also want to thank all of you today for taking the time. I know it's a little bit of a trying time right now in this world, but just to kind of get into your headspace and do something a little fun. And I want to thank you for actually getting me out of the house today and getting me here to the Kuhn Academy in Buckhead, Atlanta, to put something on and to change from my daytime pajamas to my nighttime pajamas. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that. So during the week, we're going to have a few people that are going to be coming on throughout the week, and we're offering our complimentary education to all of you. So tomorrow we're going to have James Helton, same time, 1 o'clock. He's going to be doing men's grooming and barbering, and beards, and all sorts of good information that you're going to love. And then we're going to have Chelsea James, who's also new to our team. She's going to be talking about no heat styling, which is super cool. So please catch her on Thursday. And then on Friday, Wig Out with Dallin Flint, and that's going to be at 1 o'clock as well. And he's going to talk about, more editorial styling, how to really create and build the wigs. He's got great clientele that he has that service to offer. He's going to show you wefts, and he's got all sorts of information that he's going to share. So along this week, we're going to give you a lot of information that we think is a lot of fun, and really just help us to kind of take a little vacation for an hour or so. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show with you, I'm going to share exactly what we're doing and the mixing ratios. So my base color that I've already done, that you see right here, is our semi-color. And I really enjoy using the semi-color. The base color that you're going to see is going to be gray, 60 grams, 9.1, which is a beautiful ash at a level 9, 10 grams, and then 817, just a gram. And that blue violet really does help to give you that beautiful depth in the gray that you see in the mannequin. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. The mixing ratio is really 1 to 2. So always remember that. I use the red activator. I love red activator when I'm doing any type of gray blending or even any type of creative color. I love the way it just really gives you a good deposit. And for gray blending, it's really good because it is a little bit of a higher volume than our activator. So there's 2 that we have. So I want to just share with you, here's the color Chameleon formulation that we're going to be using. We have 20 grams of clear. And what you're going to see when you're mixing our color Chameleon, you're going to have a chart. And on that chart, it's going to give you different ratios, different mixtures that you can use. So you have them down here from the 1 to 1 pure, 1 to 5, and 1 through 20. So, so there you go. And you're going to see all those different ratios. My ratio today was a 1 to 20 ratio. With this color right here, I wanted to create a beautiful coral. So the coral is going to be equal parts of my orange and my rose, and really play with them because they're very highly concentrated. So this is the tone that we're going to be using. I'll show you right now. So this is the rose, so that you can see it. It's really pretty. And we're going to be using a yellow, and the yellow ratio is 10 grams of yellow with 5 grams. So it's a little bit stronger. The yellow is the softest, I think, of all the tones, so you're going to really love that to place it. Then we have a really soft green, and that's 20-1 as well. You can see that. And then a little bit of a lilac. Again, 20-1, so you can see the color just change. It's straight out of the tube. So you have a clear, you have a dark, that you can actually, sure, what's the question? What's, ooh, let's see, giving your clients a color kit. Actually, there's been a few things that I've seen being posted. Some people have offered to put the kit together, bag it, get it kind of pre-done, and then give them a service charge or a more minimal charge of what they usually would get in the salon. A lot of the clients that results have responded very positively, and I think that if that's going to help them out right now in their times. And I always look at it this way: when you're helping a client out, they're the ones that really take care of you on the most craziest days, on weddings and funerals and all sorts of things, and you're always there for them. So I think in this time of need right now, I don't think it would hurt to offer that special service to them. We are a professional brand. We don't really offer it, but if you're out there, and I understand you're, by yourself, that would be a way of creating some income for you. Just yesterday in the park, as a matter of fact, I saw a nail tech doing nails in the salon. So I hope that helped. So going with those formulations, that's what we're going to use. I want to talk about my sectioning really quick. Oh, good question, Marla. Thank you for the question. So you want to know about the durability. Here's what's interesting about it. When I was working with Chameleon, what I noticed was in the rinsing process that you hardly had any bleeding. It's probably going to be up to you as far as the porosity, the level that you bring it to. Ideally, the best level to bring it to is a level 10. As you can see that we have here on this Olivia. This is the mannequin that we use to do creative color. But what you're going to see is, I'm going to show you this really quick. You have a 1:5, a 1:10, and a 1:20 ratio. So you can see the differences. What you're going to notice though is even though we placed them and spaced them out, when we rinsed them, nothing was bled onto the natural hair, which is really cool. But back to the durability, I would suggest probably 6 to 8 shampoos depending on the tone and the porosity. So always remember to have to keep that in mind. A great question though, thank you for that. And so I want to talk about the base color first. Again, the ratio for those of you that just jumped on, 60 grams of gray, 9.110, and 817, and then a 1:2 mixing ratio of my red activator. So that's the base color that you see here. I'm going to show you now just the application. So again, if those of you that like formulas, now what we're going to do on my Instagram highlights on George Colorboy Geo is we're going to put these up in that highlight category so that you can see the formulas later at a later date, and you can also follow me and also see the formulas and the head sheets. So I just want to show you the back really quick. I'm going to come in, turn around this way. I hope you can see it all. And I'm going to, the swatches that I got are from Amazon. Unfortunately, right now with everything that's going on, I ordered some and they won't be delivered until May 1st. So they're doing all, non-essentials later. So you can get them, and it's Tofufa. It's Toffa. So that's the brand that I like because they're a little bit lighter. There's another brand there called Renpool or Renbull, and they are a little bit deeper in tone. So I like these because they're a little bit lighter. So great question, thank you. And they're great to work with, and they have a nice ring, and I think there's 30 in the pack for 20 bucks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my first sectioning, and it's going to be a zigzag section. And you can see there's one right here. There's the other one in the middle. And there's the third one out to the side. That's my first zigzag. I'm going to clip this up and away, just to keep it there. And this is going to be my blending point. Now what I would suggest doing is you want to figure out what kind of color you want. And I'm going to start with one color on one end and work over. So I'm going to alternate those color choices. And if you want to smudge on a little bit of your gray to drag that through, you can absolutely do that. So I'm gonna put on my gloves because I'm notorious for not wearing gloves. Okay. So the first color choice that I'm going to use is going to be my coral. I'm going to blend it in. I'm going to use this entire section to blend in. And when blending and saturation is really key. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the coral. I'm going to work that through. I'm going to work it in all the way and blend it into some of that gray. Now, I did create a benchmark for you to see later, so I'll bring that out in a little bit. Oh, you want to see it on the Instagram? Okay, cool. Because I do have a photo that is on there right now, currently, of the benchmark. And I have to thank a really good friend out there, Gareth Palmer, who actually did the haircuts for our benchmarks, because we did it in our cut and color collaboration this past month. And he did the beautiful cuts. Sure. Yeah, how's that? Sure. I'm not talking to myself. I have somebody in my head talking to me, so don't think I'm going crazy. So here's my lavender. I'm just going to blend that into the gray. Okay. Now, for me, I want it to be a little more commercial. So what I'm going to do is on the next sectioning that you see in between, and this one right here and that one, that's my reed. That's telling me where to put the color. I'm just going to take my towel and wipe my hands so that I don't carry that color over. Okay. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to take that section, right completely out straight away. So it's already telling you when you're creating those little triangles where you're going to place it. So what I love about this type of placement is you get to create a movement in the color. You know me, I'm a firm believer in creating visual texture with your color, but by having diagonal sections that are in this upside down triangle, what you're going to get is you get a push to the left and then you get a push to the right. So when you do your finger waves or your curl with your curling flat iron curl, you get a really beautiful tousled curl with a lot of color. So this is going to be my base color, which is my semi. And I want to paint that in between all of those sections and carry it through. Now, sometimes, you know, there's maybe a little bit of yellow and you may need to tone it. And I've been filling and toning with something that we have called neutralizing spray. And I'm going to share that with you really quick because I want you to see the coolness of the result that you're going to get. And by using this, you can actually get a cooler result and a grayer result. So here's the section here. It's a blue-violet. You can start to see how it turns. If there was any little bit of yellow in there, that would actually take it away. So now I'm just going to fill over that, place my semi, and I'm going to pull that all the way through. And that's going to help to give me a really nice finish. Plus my undertone is now on the cool side, so that's really important. There it is there. Now I'm going to take my next sectioning. Again, creating a zigzag section. Working that through. Oh, they like the lavender? That's one of my favorites. And the more that you use the clear, the more pastel it'll become. So remember, this is a 20 to 1 ratio. Okay, there's that section there. I'm going to drop that one out there. Now, different shapes and different head shapes are different, so you want to make sure that your section might be a little bit lighter. Now, I started with the coral on the other side. Now I'm just going to start with the coral on the opposite side. So I'm going to work with that right here. Working those sections through. Anybody have any color questions? How's everyone doing out there? Okay, so that's a great question. How long will pastels last? Again, depending on the porosity and the tone, that's going to determine your durability. For me, if the porosity is a little bit more compromised, it tends to last not as long. But if you have a really good lift and you've taken care of the hair and you work it that way, you should be fine. It should last you probably 6 to 8 shampoos. Ooh, great question. So the question is, how long can I leave it on? I can either rinse it after the neutralizing spray, I can rinse it and spray it on, or I can leave it in like I did right here on this section. You can see the difference in the color. See how it's a little bit more steely, a little more blue, where this is a little more lilac. So that's really gonna help to alter that color. Again, on some pieces of highlighting, if you ever highlighted a head of hair and sometimes you take it out maybe a little bit too early and you see that little bit of yellow in there, it's just not gonna leave the hair, I would recommend using that spray, the neutralizing spray. Take that, put it on, and what I do is I take it out of the bottle and put it in a mister so it has an even distribution of color. Now what's gonna happen there is I'm gonna work that through, comb it through, and then read the hair, and if I feel I need to rinse it, I'll rinse it right out. And then I will towel blot it, and then I'll apply my color over the top of that. Does that help? Okay, good. Hey, Sarah. Absolutely, what we're gonna do is we're gonna put them in highlights in on our my Instagram, which is George Colorboy Geo. And when you check out the highlights on there, you're gonna see exactly the head sheets and the formulations with the benchmark. Okay. Repeat that question again for me, Jeff. Cool. I tend to use cream bleach. Cream bleach is one of my favorite go-tos. I will use it with, say, 20, depending. Working on a lighter level. So if I'm working from a level 7 on up, I will take cream bleach, I'll work it through, I will isolate sections back to back from the line demarcation in foils, open face. It's a very, very tedious application, but that's the best way to get the bleaching process up. Starting in the back, working side to side, 1/8 inch sections, working that through. Now, if I feel like I'm not getting it light enough, I will wipe the lightener off instead of rinsing it, reapply with a new batch, and probably a lower volume developer. So if I'm using 30 volume, I'll go down to a 20, reapply it on the hair, wipe off the existing product, reapply. I know it's a lot of work, but it really helps to the integrity of the hair, and it helps not to compromise that hair that you're working on. And you get a really nice, beautiful lift. So try that. I know that that works for me, and that's my go-to. I love cream bleach. I like that it's a wheat protein-based lightener, and that really helps to establish the integrity of the hair for me. Great questions, everybody. Hey, Abby. Okay. Ooh, that's a good question. So leaving it on the hair for the full processing time in between your foils. Sure, I would say if you want to leave it on and really neutralize any bit of yellow, sure, you could leave it on up to 20 minutes. And I'm probably suspecting that if your application is taking you 20 to 30 minutes, and that's already processing, and then you go back and you spray it onto the existing hair in between your foils, then your timing after you take that would be 20 to 30 minutes anyhow. So that would be perfect. You rinse it out, take the foils out, rinse that out till the water's clear, and then start removing your foils. And what I would do is I would initially just take each foil individually out. Don't take them all out and rinse it, because that'll be better for you and you'll have more control of your tones and colors. So that'll help. I hope it helps. Did I open up a can of worms? Okay, so what I'm hearing is you want to know if you should tone before color Chameleon. Is that correct? With neutralizing spray. In general, okay. If you want the purest of tones, I guess your best filler is going to be your clear. That's going to give you the pastel. So whatever you're using to create that tone is probably going to be best on a level 10, not without any filling, to get the purest and the saturation of the tone. So if I wanted it softer, again, I would use more clear, and that's what you could use to kind of dilute it and give you a softer version of itself, kind of like a little bit more worn and more vintage looking. And I'll show you the mannequin. Let me see if would you like to see the benchmark? Okay. Sure. So here's the benchmark. This is the application that we're doing now. You can see the variations of the colors from the small sectioning that we've hand painted in with the base of the gray formulation. There's some of the mint, some of the yellow, some of that really soft rose, and I just alternated them all the way across. And then just to pique a little interest, I really love the yellow, and I used it in a pure form. So it was 15 grams of clear with 5 grams of the yellow. And that will just give you a more bolder tone. So you can see how you can change those variations a little bit. Okay, so I'm gonna go there. So back to filling while you're toning. If right now what's happening with a lot of hand painting and they want that steely gray kind of finish, I would recommend using the neutralizing spray. Neutralize it, that's your undertone, it's cooler undertone, and then apply your desired color over that. And that's really gonna help you to maintain the longevity of your color, because now you have a filler that's backing it up. And when the color leaves the hair, what's gonna happen is you have now a cooler undertone versus a warm undertone, because you've already neutralized it before you've applied your color. Did that help? Okay, perfect. Oh, absolutely. So if you look up here at the chart, this is the formulation that we use that I'm alternating all the way across. So again, I'm just going to show you those colors. So we're using 20 grams of clear with 1 gram of rose and 1 gram of the orange. That's to create that little bit of a coral. 20 grams and then 1 gram of green, 20 grams of clear and 1 gram of violet, and then clear, 10 grams and 5 grams of the yellow, and that's what those are the formulations that you see that I've applied already in this sectioning. Once we do those sections all the way across, you're gonna go through, you're gonna pull through the base formula, which is the semi-formula, and you're gonna pull that in between your application. You always wanna keep that in there so that you have a little bit of a contour and texture in the color. So I'm gonna bring this around, make it easier, so that I can work off to the right so that you can see really well. How's that? Okay, good. Thank you for all the questions, they're really good. Now over here, I'm gonna start with a little bit of the yellow. Now as I'm working up through the head, there's a couple of things that I always say to people, and that you're gonna be working with the round of the head. So the higher that I work up to the high point of the head, the graduation is gonna always be a part of the end result. So in looking at that, what you're thinking of is the more I work up, sometimes my blend will have to be a little bit closer to the scalp. You don't want a really rooty area up on top because of the length that it travels all the way through. And you're gonna see that the yellow is a little bit higher in my application. Working that through. Wiping through my hands here. Okay. I'm gonna go into the next one. I think I'm gonna do what's underneath the lavender, so I'm gonna do a green. Working that through. And the only foil application that we will be doing is gonna be in the very front on the very section that you saw me take out. Working that through all the way. There you go. And then the next one. A couple of tools that I like to use to do blends. Let me share with you this one. So this is gonna be with my gray. So I'll apply my gray with my brush, and then I'll comb it through on the opposite side of this tool just to get a better smudge. And when you see the reed on the hair, right here. You can see how it's breaking it up. See how it drags it through? Then you're ready to go in and apply your other color. Now sometimes in this area I'll work a little further down where I want my blend to be, and then I'll go back with a dry brush. One of my other favorite brushes to use is the Farmar brush to do a blend. And I'll work that through and drag some of that gray in there so that I get a really beautiful soft blend from each color to the next. Okay, so now my next sectioning is going to be right here. You can see these two triangles right there, how they're talking to me. That's going to be my next section. And that is going to be gray. So I'm going to work this through. The comb blend is one of my favorite. It's a tool that we had. You know, you ever look at your dispensary and you kind of go like, what's this for? Or you think, what can I use that for? This is one of those forgotten tools that we have in our kit system that really works well. And it's just a brush and a comb on one side. So it's really cool to do your color application and then just comb it through so you can get rid of the extra tool that you might have in your hand. Because if you're like me, I'm a little klutzy once in a while, so I have to be careful. So now I'm going to work through my pink. Work that through. And I want to show you another benchmark that I did with the same kind of application. Now this could be a very commercial application too, because you could do this with hand painting and do a little bit of a balayage if you wanted to do some blonding. That would work really well. And you could do a base color for gray coverage if you wanted, and then work through and do some blending. Now ideally for me, this is in a bob that we did, so I took smaller sections. The length that I'm working on is a little bit longer, so when Gareth for our next class uses this to do a cut on, we can have a different end result with the type of cut that he puts into it. Okay, there's that. What's your question? Okay, so great question. Who was it, Sarah? Okay, Sarah. So, I find that it has a really good glide. I know what you're saying. There are times when I've worked with colors, especially in the direct dye world, where they tend to, where you put it, it sits, and then it's hard to work through. You have to consistently work it through. I find that this has a really good glide, even when you're working with it in its purest tone. Like for instance, I posted something with rainbow colors, and I was using it with the purest of colors. And I had to really work it through in order to get it into the next horizontal placement. So I was working it through here, really working it in, and then working it through in pure form. With clear, I seem to get a little bit more of a glide working through. So I think that it gives you a better pliability to work with, and easier glide to do blending with. Oh, great. I would say that it does have a similar consistency when using clear. But when you're using it in its pure form, it still has a glide, but it still has the viscosity is a little thicker, I think. Great questions. Thank you, everyone. The dark is, okay, so for some of you that saw me do some posting about smoking out, here's what I love about dark. So let me grab one for you. So what I like about the dark is that it can smoke out your tones. It's not a black, it's more of a charcoal. We did it on a swatch to see what the tone would be and let it. A couple of students that I worked with just a few weeks ago used the smoke or the dark on the base of this level, and it was a beautiful charcoaly gray. What I like about it when you're using with yellow or even the rose, you get a really vintage tone. But remember that the darkers are always going to dominate, so you don't want to overuse it. You want to just place it little by little. Use one small dot first and then work it into more if you need to. But remember that it does deepen up. And on the chart, you're gonna see the variations of the tones and the mixtures. So when you're looking at a 1-to-1 dark, see how dark that from the pure tone right here? See how dark it goes? Can you see that? So then all of these colors, you can see the deposition by mixing them a 1-to-1 ratio with the dark. So you're gonna get a deeper, richer tone. And if you want a smokier light pastel, if you added just a little bit to it, you can get a smoked out color too. Great question, thank you.
Tell them why you color in the back.
Okay, in a salon environment, I wouldn't be talking, I'd be working. So I would probably say a good 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how much hair they have. So usually an application of foils, for me, is about a 20-minute application, 20 to 30. Again, depending on the thickness of the hair. Great question. Some people book out on the 45, some people book out on the hour. So it really depends on the booking system that you have. Now on the top section, bleeding over, I'm just gonna paint a variation onto the tips, and that'll give me a blend from the gray into the mint. And then on the other one over here, I'm gonna pull that through, and I'm gonna do a little bit of my gray with my lilac. Yes. Okay.
What are the foils for?
Okay, so repeat that question for me again, because that was a deep one, a long one, yeah. Uh-huh. Okay, so the question is a really good question, and that is when you're having the tones meet and blend. It's like the color wheel, just think of it that way. If you have a yellow and then you put in probably an orange, is that yellow going to be a brighter or maybe even a copper? Absolutely. So yes, they will change in any color. In direct dyes especially, you're gonna see the tonality of the mixture between the two blends. So for instance, if I'm using, well, let me just show you. If I'm using, do you want to grab the orange for me, or I'll grab the orange? So for instance, I have this little bit of orange right here. These are great questions, everyone. Now let's just say I took a drop, okay? Is this addressing the question? And I mix that in. Now when I blend in my yellow, see how it starts to turn that orange and soften it and give me a really kind of pastel blend. So it is gonna change it. See how it's changing it all the way through? So yes, in the direct dye world, that will happen. Now in a semi world, not so much. And in a permanent world, depending on what you're using, let's just say that you're using a high lift. And if you're using a high lift and you have a base color of say a permanent tint at the base, and you pull it through and you want to blend, I would suggest you're probably going to be using a level 9, 10, and then blending in with your high lift all the way through, or even your lightener. And that should give you a slight gradient of color or tone, and it'll softly lighten that tone just a little bit where you're blending the two. Great questions, guys.
When you use foil.
So I'm going to start using the foil in the very front. I'm going to finish this section, and we're going to go to the very top afterwards. I really actually like this tone. I might do some more of those. Thank you for the suggestion. It's coming out really pretty. And I'm going to take lighter, bigger sections. Is there another question? So you would have a really big block of time. The question was, how would I schedule this in my salon if I had to do a pre-lightning service and then do the fantasy tones after that? It's going to take you several hours. Some people that I know that I've worked with, like Alicia or Bella in Oakland, she might take up to 4 hours, depending on the length of the hair again, and the process and how high you're lifting her and where you're lifting her from. That's really important. You have your desired level of lift, and you have your existing level. So wherever you're at and where you're going is going to determine how much lift you have to get. So that block of time is really determined by each individual that you work on. For me to give you a block of time, I don't think that would be fair, because I don't know or see who's working or sitting in your chair. But as a guideline, what I would suggest is doing that process, however long that takes. It might take an hour, it might take 2, it might take 3 to get her lifted. Rinsing, conditioned, because always put back what you take out, so you're going to have to condition her in between that service, and then go through and do your application with your fantasy tones. And however long that takes. If you're doing a gradient like this, it might take you a little longer. If you're doing an all-over application, but you want to get that saturation really good and pure, that also takes some time. So it's going to be determined by who you're working on, really. I hope that answered that question. Ooh, so recommend removing. What's the first thing that some of you might go to when you want to remove a fantasy shade? I know that I used to do it, I'm really guilty of it, but the first thing I would go to is a lightener. And what happens when you use a lightener on, let's say, a fantasy shade or anything in Chameleon, what you're going to do is you're going to get a lighter version. So what happens there is for sulfates from the lightener will drive the color in just a little bit further. So what you'd like to do is we suggest using one of our high lifts. We have a 1000 series, and use it equal parts to its developer. So 30 grams of developer, 20, 30, applying that on there, and it'll softly remove the color. And it's one of the easiest ways to do it. I love using that application of color when I'm taking out colors. For instance, I had a girl with magenta from mid-length to ends. She had the application done the previous week. I wanted to change her color tone. So what we did was we used the, Carrie Uhas and I were working on this model, and what we did was we took that 1000 with 30, worked it through the magenta, and it completely pulled it out in 20 minutes, and she was at her blonde level. So I would suggest using a high lift. The 1000 series works really well. Great questions, thank you. Okay, so we're going to work through this. This is some of the gray. This is going to be my last section of zigzagging. Before I go to the top, you can see it's about 2 inches. Work that through, work that up, and then we're going to work this through. That. Now I'm going to work in some yellow. Over here I'm going to use some of the coral.
Where's your highlighting column?
Working that through. Making sure to get that saturation really good. And then with my last ones, I'm going to use some of the gray because I want that to continue throughout the blend. So I'm going to work that in. And then I'm going to work up to the very top so you can see the foil application. And then I'm going to recap it on some of the head sheets that for some of you that just joined us. Is that Max Kavanaugh? No, I'm not in a hotel room. I'm at the Kuhn Academy in Buckhead, Atlanta. So, yeah, it's kind of a ghost town around here. So we drove in, and here's we are. And now I'm kind of glimpse around so that you can see, so you won't just see the white wall, but no, I'm not in a hotel. Direct dye, it depends. Some manufacturers already built them into their system. We don't. So for us here at Kuhn, what we decided to use was 1000. 1000, any high lift that is clear that doesn't have a base will work for you. Doesn't have or contain a persulfate, so that won't drive that direct dye in. So it's easier to remove. It just kind of infracts that melanin and lifts it just a little bit more for you. And it'll get you to a better, softer tone. And I've been working with a lot of gradients. I love the gradients right now that are happening for blends. So what I've done is I've taken a section on the top. And this is really key and important because if she's wearing a parting, let's just say on her left side, okay? George. But I decide that I want to start my foils on the opposite side. Can you see now?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say I start my foils there. If I start my foils on this side and work up this way, I'm going to have a solid looking color. So what I want to do is I want to create some movement in the color. So what you want to do, just like I did in this one, is you're going to start from where the hair starts to part. So let me move this out of the way so you can see it. So what we're going to do is we're going to start on this side. And you can see by working in diagonal placement all the way across, you're going to get more ribbons of color working into the heavier pieces of the haircut, or the heavy part of the haircut. This would be the shallow part, this would be the deeper end. So this is going to give me those ribbons of colors and blend them in. And then I have more control on smudging in my gray. You're pulling and directing your color away from where it lives. By doing that, when you push it into the opposite direction where it wants to fall. Now remember, and I always say this about color, you want to work with two things. You're working in the round. You're going to want to work with the form of the head shape and the natural fall of the haircut. So this is where we're going to start. So for me, the natural fall is over to her right, and I'm using the head form by taking that hair away from where it lives. Did that answer that question? Cool. So here's the section on top. I'm going to start from the opposite side, and I'm going to slice sections because I want the gradient to be pretty strong. Here's my first foil application straight across. I'm going to take some of my gray, I'm going to work that through, and then I'm going to determine what colors I want in the very front. So I'm going to take a little bit of my mint. And for me, this is the fun part. This is the creative part of doing it into a foil. So I'm using the foil as my board. And then I'm going to take some of the yellow. I'm going to work that through. And back to that question, look at how that yellow and that green combined together are starting to give me a transitional tone. And that's really key. And there's my yellow. Then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place, because I'm a talker, obviously, when I'm working. So sometimes I forget, and most of us do this, like where I'm working. So now this little transparent foil over that is telling me exactly what I just last used. So now what we're going to do, and Bill's helping me by moving things around, so thank you, Bill. This is my second foil, and we're just going to alternate those. I'm kind of in a bricklayer pattern. Again, I'm using my gray. I'm going to smudge that gray in just a little bit. I'm using the foil as my board, so that's going to be my support. And now I'm just going to take my coral. And on these colors right here, on this application, I'm not really skipping in any of the gray. Now you can, but I do it every so often just to add that color to give me that rhythm of color to blend in from the dark into the other colors. So we're going to work that through. I knew that question was going to come up. So these were something by Kuhn that we had. They're called our transparent foils. We no longer have them. But what I usually use by Color Track are the non-cling wrap. They come in a 500 roll. They're perforated, and they're, the width of them is as wide as the foil. So they're really easy to work with. I've tried other wraps, cling wraps, and it's really frustrating for me to use them because it's difficult to work for me. So I know some people I see that they use, cling wrap very easily, but for me it's just a little bit more difficult. So I tend to use the non-cling wrap by Color Tracks. Great question, thank you. Now I'm going to work through the gray all the way to the ends. Now look at the angle that I'm leaving that, because this is going to travel over to that side. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that coral, because here it is here, it's extended. I want it to come over and be a little stronger. So I'm going to add that coral higher to the point on my right, working it over in an angle, and then really saturating the end. So see how high it is here? The transparency is sitting right underneath it. Here it is there. Can you see Bill back here, Jessica?
I can't get her in the right spot. She needs to go out.
Bill, they said you had beautiful hands.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, he thought, oh, thank you.
Salon on her.
Salon on her hands.
No calluses.
No calluses. Don't let him pull you. All right. Now we're just alternating the gray. So what you're doing is you're getting this really nice brick layer pattern. We're going to continue up to the high point of the head, which is the very back high point. What's really great about that sectioning that you have up here is that you're going to get a natural spill of color by over-directing it to the opposite side. The spill of color still goes in there, and you can see it right here in the mannequin. You can see the color variation. Needs to be tightened. Never mind. Tighten that for me, please.
Can you lift her up?
So what you're going to do is you're going to see that spill of color right there that's coming over into the hair. So by over-directing it to this opposite side, you're getting that spill of color
Can't see it.
variation.
Can't see it.
Oh, let me see. Let me show you here. How's that?
A little better.
So even though we've over-directed all of these sections over to here, what's eventually going to happen is it's going to travel over to that area, and that's where you're going to get the color placement to fall into the very top of that section.
Show the front.
And in the front, we're working this way. I'm taking brick layers, and you can start to see the variation of the colors and the depth of the gray working through the tips of that color. My sections are probably 1.5 inches in width, so the triangles are wider on the top and then narrow into the bottom. Great question. So let me show you. So on the front, they're a little different. I'm taking slices. So let me clarify that. In the triangle pieces, they're about 1 to 1.5 inches in width. In the slicing, what I'm doing is they're 1.5 inches in width this way, but it is a softer 1/8 of an inch section in the width. So we're working that through. I'm going to work some of the light on. How does it look when it fades? So the color that's going to fade the quickest, beautiful, is going to be your yellow. So just like any other color, after you wash it and you get fadage on your clothing, it's the same thing. The yellow will be exiting the hair first, of course. I think Amber our technical director, has been testing it as far as longevity and doing different shampoos. So I'll have to get back to her, and then I can always answer that once I speak to her about it, exactly what colors in what range last the longest and are the quickest to leave. But I think she did mention to me yellow was the first one that did leave the hair. And rose, thank you. So here's my next section. And I'm just going to continue this and alternating them in a brick layer section. Now this is going to be a diagonal forward, so the push is going to be towards the front. Now here's my green, working that through. Okay, good. So I hope everybody's enjoying their day today. I hope they got to get a little bit of an escape from today. I know this has been really fun for me, so thank you for watching and listening in. I'm going to continue. Now here's my next one here. I'm going to work that through. And I'm going to work some more gray in through here. And then I'm going to tip that out with the coral. Now this is really creating a little bit of creative freedom. It's allowing you to place the colors where you feel like you want to see them. For me, the yellow was really important over here, and then the other one is the pink. So depending on what you want to create visually is entirely up to you. And that's about tapping into your creative freedom, really. It's about exactly what you want to create. Remembering that if you understand all of your fundamentals and your principles, then you can always break them and you can always be more creative. So that's what I tend to do. Working that through, I'm going to work through a little bit of the gray here. I'm going to see where it lands. It's right there. Sure, I could. Actually, I can do one better. The base color. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. I'm going to share with you exactly what it is. So you can see it on the screen there. Can you see it? So it's going to be, the gray is going to be 60 grams of gray in semi-color, which is our demi-permanent color. You're going to have 10 grams of 9.1, and then you're going to have just a gram of your 817, which is a blue-violet at a level 8. Adding that is going to give you this really soft gray tone that you see that I've created here at the base, and that you can see right here. It's very steely, very soft. Remember, this is a level 10, so it's going to appear a little bit lighter. It's going to look darker as it oxidizes, but once you rinse it, because of the level that it's sitting in, it's going to be a little bit lighter. The coral formula is 20 parts of clear to 1 part of orange and 1 part of the rose. So 1 gram of rose, 1 gram of the orange, and then 20 grams of the clear. Good question.
Can I turn this off really quick to see if they're to run lighting?
Ooh, good question. Retouch is the #1 question that we get in color application in any class. So let's consider this. Anytime you have a client that comes in for your regrowth retouch, you're going to do it the same. Anytime you're going to do dimensional color, I always have an extra batch of color, like my base color or maybe even a low light color in there, and I let the color tell me where I need to see it. So sometimes I'll be doing my old, original color application of high lift and like say a lightener, and I'm alternating those. I'll always have a demi-permanent next to me, because sometimes when you take the section out and you see a little line of demarcation, and then you see a little faded in, maybe I need to put a low light in there to freshen it back up. So you're gonna pushing up color at the same time and putting it back in, so push and pull kind of technique. And I have a technique that I use on that for, say, clients that come in with dimensional color, a base color, and then they come in not at supposedly the time they're supposed to, they come in a lot later, and I show you how you can actually get that brand new retouch to look fresh again. So yeah, it depends on what you're working on really, but always having something extra there just in case while you're working through the hair. I don't take it for granted, and I always mix my colors, say whatever I did before. I always have a conversation with my client, and the color conversation that I have is like, how did you like your color? Or what is it that I could do different this time? What do you want to see? And that will help me to create my formula palette and then apply it as I go. And every time I do it, it's going to be a little bit different. Just like a haircut. You don't cut exactly each and every hair. Great question, though. So could I store pre-mixed color chameleon shades? Clarification on that one. You mean have it mixed up and save it?
Yes.
I like to use my color fresh. I mean, I like to, so here's what I did for this class right now. So what I did, can you move this out of the way, please? So what I did was I put the clear in first. I did my measurements of yellow, my violet, my rose, my orange, my green. I left them sit, and right before we started, about a minute before, I started mixing them. I like to have them to mix together fresh. So on a direct dye, I don't really know what the longevity would be if they sat there for a while. I couldn't tell you that, but my performance of color is always going to be best when they're freshly mixed. Okay. How are we doing on time, Jess? Ooh. Okay. So here's this right here. I would continue this all the way through. I'm going to do one more section so that you can see it. And then I'm going to share with you the benchmark so you can go, and I'm going to do a little quick recap. So I was just curious about what some of you might want to see next. We're going to be doing these weekly, every day. And we were just kind of wondering what you guys would be interested in seeing from us. In a color or cutting or finishing, anything that you might be interested, let us know, and we'll definitely work something out and try to oblige you with whatever we can. Okay, so let me just go through a brief recap really quick. So everything in the back that you see here are triangular partings. You can see those pieces. Alternating my color Chameleon formulation all the way around, work it through the sides. There was a semi-oval parting on the very top, which you can see we've worked on here. We worked from the parting side over, directed the hair to that part, and applied my application of color that way, smudging in some of that gray so that you can have a really nice piece of this shadow root or a lived-in look. The color formulations that you see, here's the application that we did. So we just worked from side to side and alternated all of these 4 tones. Then into the top, taking that oval section, working where the part is, off the part, over directing the hair from where it lives to the left. And then what you're gonna see is, this is the application in a bricklayer application, all the way to the apex or the high point of the head. Now here's a really good tip to remember. And this is, Amber's shared this with me in a discussion of color application. Anything above the parietal ridge, the color is gonna spill. Anything below the parietal ridge, the color is going to lay. A good example would be, have you ever done foils into the temple area and all of a sudden you get these little lines of digits? Because what you've done is you've taken a horizontal parting, you've placed the color where it lay, it doesn't move because there's no movement in the head shape. So what's gonna do, it's gonna create long digits of color and it gives you a harder line of demarcation. So just remember that. Above the parietal ridge, the hair is gonna spill, so the color's gonna spill. Below the parietal ridge, the color's gonna lay. So I hope that helped you today. So that's that benchmark there. I'm gonna show you once it's complete. This is what it's gonna look like when it's finished. And then just to give you a variation of colors, this is the other bit of gray with pink color variations. And again, using the lilac, the pink, and the gray through that combination of colors. And this one's got 4 combinations of color. So, how much time have we got? How are we doing? Okay, are there any other questions before I get to leave you guys? Because I'm telling you, I've had such a great time and I just want to thank you all for getting me out of the house because it's giving me a little cabin fever. And so this would really help me today. And I really appreciate you guys coming out and just taking the time to sit in on the class and listen. So thank you for the questions and thank you for everything that you support us with here at CUNY. If you have an opportunity to come visit us at the CUNY Academy, please feel free. We have courses as soon as all of this is over. We'll put the calendar back up and I'm sure that you'll be able to book your classes and come visit us in Atlanta. So I want you to all have a great day. Enjoy yourselves. If you want to revisit this, we're going to put it on different platforms. And again, I'm going to have all of the head sheets and the formula on my highlights. And you're going to want to go to George Colorboy Geo on my Instagram. And it'll be under the highlights. You'll see it there. So thank you guys. Thank you very much. Jess, thank you. Little Jess Bankstyle, thank you so much for setting all this up. Thank you, Dallin, for doing the video. I really appreciate it. Again, tomorrow, Tuesday, James Helton with grooming at 1 o'clock. Chelsea James on Thursday, no heat styling. And on Friday, you're going to see Dallin Flint, and Dallin's going to be doing wig out, and that's going to be a great and fun class as well. So thank you for everything. I hope you had a great time with me today, and I'll see you soon. Stay safe, be healthy, and be well. I'll talk to you guys later. And wash your hands. Take care.
Huh.
Bill, would you end it for me?
Oh. How do you end it? Ah, just clicking.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.